Long overdue, we finally made it to our #1 bucket list country, Iceland. And we are going to tell you everything you need to know to plan an epic trip
in 10 minutes or less.
From the east coast of the US, where we're from, it's about a 5-hour flight and around $450 round trip. Unless you live in Iceland, you'll be flying into Reykjavik because the country is a small Nordic island between mainland Europe and Greenland. You will need a minimum of 4 days for the Golden Circle or 8 to 10 days for the Ring Road, which we highly recommend doing. Before you even look at flights, make sure you know what time of year you want to go to Iceland.
Winter or summer. We do not recommend off-season travel. It is extremely rainy and not ideal.
If you decide you want to go in the winter, there are minimal crowds, 20 hours of darkness, which improves your chances of seeing the northern lights, and ice caves.
Or you can go during the summer months, June through August, and experience the midnight sun. You'll have 24 hours of sunlight and have the best driving conditions.
There are no taxis or public transportation to get you around the island, so you are going to need to book a rental car or a van, and we highly recommend doing van life because it is the most fun way to see Iceland. Speaking of transportation, we're going to tell you how to get around the island. We chose the company Indie Campers and we had the best experience with them. The van was spacious enough for 3 people and we enjoyed having the ability to cook whenever we wanted in the van because there aren't a lot of restaurants or places to eat. Also, everyone is doing this because it is so much fun, so we definitely recommend trying it out.
If you do decide to do van life, we have 3 important tips for you. Tip number 1, make sure you can drive a stick shift vehicle. Bree knew how to drive and after a while it was too much driving for her, so I had to learn how to drive stick in a parking lot in Iceland. Tip number 2, get van insurance. You always think it won't happen to you, but in the end it saved us thousands of dollars when Bree opened the door and the Iceland wind almost ripped the door off its hinges. Tip number 3, when you book your van, make sure you account for how many miles you're going to drive and plan ahead to save your budget. We got unlimited miles, but if you're positive you don't go over your allotted daily miles, don't purchase this.
On the topic of transportation, expect to spend most of your budget on getting yourself around. We spent about $550 on fuel for 1,500 miles getting ourselves around the island.
A great travel tip, most car rental companies will give you a key fob to give you a discount every time you fuel up. It's only a couple bucks, but if you're there for a week, it definitely adds up.
If you're gonna try van life, which at this point we hope we've convinced you to try it, you're gonna need to book some campsites. Camping anywhere but in a campsite is illegal in Iceland. Every campsite costs a small fee, which usually includes showers, water, and a dump station. Look these up ahead of time through this website, and we'll also link it below.
Next up is talking about Iceland's currency. So Iceland uses the krona, and it's very unique. We believe there is no better way to travel than using a travel card with no foreign transaction fees, because you can get points while you're traveling, and those points can go towards future trips.
On to my favorite topic, food. There are some cute restaurants for you to stop at, mostly in the southern part of Iceland, because once you reach the northern part, there isn't much to eat up there, so you are going to need to figure something out at the grocery store. Stock up on some inexpensive and easy van recipes. Make sure you bring a reusable water bottle. All the campgrounds give you free fresh water.
Next up, we're going to talk about the lagoons.
The 2 most popular lagoons that everyone is talking about is the Blue Lagoon and the Sky Lagoon. And while you're in Iceland, go to both. We loved both lagoons and they both have something unique to offer. When you're booking, make sure you book the earliest appointment you can get so there's not a lot of crowds, and make sure you book your appointment in advance because they do sell out. If you're on a budget, there are plenty of free hot springs to check out, which we enjoyed just as much. Next up, we are going to talk about the weather in Iceland.
The weather is so unpredictable. One minute it could be rainy and snowing, the next minute sunny and blue skies.
I think we saw one amazing sunset while we were there, and that was about it.
Getting to the best part of this video, the itinerary, what you have to see during your trip to Iceland.
Before we get into it, please excuse our pronunciations of some of these places. We do not speak Icelandic and we are trying our best. You already know we're going to tell you to drive the entire ring road. If you're making the long trek to get to Iceland, do it right and see the best of what Iceland has to offer. The massive waterfalls like Seljalandsfoss, Skogafoss, Kirkjufell, and Godafoss are incredible. We dedicated a whole video to our favorite waterfalls in Iceland, so click up here to see some of our favorites. Because we drove the ring road, we got to hit Polly's #1 bucket list spot in Iceland.
Studigill Canyon.
Studigill Canyon is a place that I had to drive, and it is extremely scary because there's cliffs everywhere and no one really warned you what kind of driving it is, so make sure you're comfortable driving a stick shift. Heading to the southern part of Iceland, a lot of people choose to just do the southern region of Iceland, which is totally fine. That's where a majority of the waterfalls are and the famous black sand beach, Reynisfjara. But do not take the warnings here lightly. Sneaker waves are real and they are terrifying and deadly unless the green caution light is on. We do not recommend going on the beach, even if there's tons of other tourists out there. Another great beach to visit is Diamond Beach with the icebergs on it. It's awesome, but it's also very cold here. Other places you're going to want to see are the plane wreck, the glacier lagoon, and the Myvatn nature baths. If you want a more in-depth itinerary, we made this video on our trip to Iceland. Click up here to check that out. The whole road is around 1,100 miles. It's accessible year-round with the exception of extreme weather. The Golden Circle is just as amazing to see waterfalls, geysers, and Thingvellir National Park. If you aren't able to do the whole ring road or you don't feel comfortable driving, this is the next best thing to do in Iceland.
I'm sure at this point you're wondering, what do I even wear if I go to Iceland?
Pack rainproof gear. No matter what time of year you're visiting, expect it to rain and pack many layers. Your clothes will get wet. Bring extra socks, waterproof hiking shoes, skip the jeans, and layer up in the winter.
If you plan on bringing your drone to Iceland, you cannot fly it in any of the national parks. You can get pre-approval by filling out a bunch of forms online that you have to submit.
Not a lot of people know to do this, and you also cannot fly it near some of the waterfalls, so be careful which ones you choose to do it. If you're going to try and drive the F roads in the wintertime, if they are closed or if there's an advisory not to travel, do not attempt to do this, and do not do this without a four-wheel drive car. If your main goal is to see some of the sites that the F roads can offer, you might want to skip van life and try and go in the summertime with a tent. Last but not least, we are going to cover our budget in Iceland. We are going to tell you what we spent, and I'm sure that no matter what your preferences are, this can go up or down.
Just like any destination, you can make it budget friendly, or you can make it the most expensive trip you've ever been on.
Iceland on average is a little bit more expensive than the US, so if you're coming from here, you can expect to spend a little bit more. Starting off with fuel, this cost us about $550 for 10 days. Then our van cost about $1,100, and this is split between 3 people. It was us and one of my friends that went. Next, accommodations. This is all of the campgrounds that we had to pay for. Cost about $250 total, split 3 ways.
Flights, like we said in the beginning of the video, cost us $450 each round trip. Food, we spent about on average $100 per person for the 11 days that we were there. Lastly, the lagoons cost us $200 each between the Sky Lagoon and the Blue Lagoon. So this brought our trip to a grand total of roughly $1,400 per person.
That concludes our Iceland in under 10 minutes video. We hope we answered all your questions. If you have any more, drop them below.
And we'll see you guys back here next week.
Bye! Here's some things you should not do when you're in Iceland. Do not walk anywhere there are signs that say do not enter.
Duh!
I know, but some people do it. Cut
Don't
that.
eat the sand. Forms.
Yeah.